software is there in the nature. Very statistical.
Yeah, about that.
Just we put the number.
They choose the correct level of significance. It's usually 0.05.
Sir, what is the difference 0.05 and 0.01?
These are the levels of statistical significance. This one is the most traditional one. If the result is significant at this level, it means that
there is
only 5% is the chance variation that can happen.
Exactly. The probability of this result happening by random chance alone is 5%. In which case we say that the result is statistically significant, that the convention that we made earlier. This is the most stringent test, let's say. This is the most stringent test. So usually we choose this one, we choose one table test, we find the critical value, which is 5 in our case. We compare our test statistic 4 to 5. If it is smaller or equal to the critical value, we say that the result was significant. That's how we calculate it by hand. Now they have a lot of statistical software packages and some services available online, and it is acceptable for them to use those services as long as they provide a screenshot in one of the appendices. And if they highlight the portions of the outputs where they actually to which they look, so that it should be clear from the appendix that they used this web service, they used this output, and they used these specific parts of the output to arrive at the conclusions they arrived at. Okay? Should we call it today?
One more.
Yeah, sure.
For state paper, I already mentioned the same thing. One stimulus gives 3 questions. Based on the question, how can the children answer the question? It's related to, for example, it's a focus group interview. Question is like they explain the focus group interview based on study. How they can explain? They need to explain only the concept, or it should be based on the.
For paper 3, again, these are the learning outcomes. It's best if we start with the learning outcomes all the time. And these are, in case of paper 3, these are exactly the questions that you're going to get in the exam. Usually. There could be some slight variations there, but they are less than in paper 1 and paper 2. So usually you get some sort of a stimulus material. It could be a focus group, it could be a narrative interview, whatever. And then you are asked questions that relate not to the stimulus material, but to qualitative research in general. And that's the trick. So the several obstacles that need to be overcome from the start are: kids should be very explicitly taught not to confuse qualitative research methodology for quantitative research methodology. This means that the moment they use terms like validity or ecological validity in paper 3, things go badly, because examiners conclude that kids do not know the difference between the 2 methodologies.
Qualitative and quantitative.
Yeah. Paper 3 is supposed to show their knowledge and understanding of qualitative research methodology. If they say things like qualitative research methodology is not the reliable methodology because, unlike experiments, it lacks this and this and this, this is the high road to failure in paper 3. They're supposed to outline the strengths and recognize limitations of qualitative approach. Now, the reason they have stimulus material there is not to distract them, it's just to provide a point of reference. So the idea is that they should be answering the questions generally, not about the stimulus material. They should be writing about reflexivity in qualitative research in general if they get this question. But they should use the stimulus material to draw some examples from it. That's it. So if they write a response about the stimulus material, that's average marks at the best. If they write a response about reflexivity in general, recognizing its strengths and limitations, and making examples from the stimulus material, from the relevant parts, they are demonstrating their knowledge and understanding of qualitative research, exactly the purpose of paper 3.
I thought in a different way, because they must know the theory part in the qualitative research area, but that stimulus material, based on the stimulus material, they should answer the specific question. But they should explain each and every theoretical part, but it should be related to the stimulus material. That was my idea. It is not like that.
Not exactly. So the stimulus material is.
Then why they are given the stimulus material? They can give directly the question.
It is there to support the answer. Because the stimulus material, in the best case scenario, it should be used effectively to demonstrate the arguments they make here. For example, let's say reflexivity happens when they say there are two types of reflexivity in qualitative research: personal and epistemological. That's from the book. In the case of this stimulus material, clearly epistemological reflexivity was used, namely when the researcher asked himself the question, what method is best of all to use in this case? In brackets, lines 4 to 6. See, so in this case they are showing that they can recognize the specific parts of the stimulus material that's relevant to the problem of reflexivity. That's why it's there. It's better demonstrating their understanding. Otherwise, if it was not there, they could just memorize stuff and just repeat it.
Yeah, actually, I heard one Derek Burton's one written material I have. In that, all the answers are there. It's just like a exam paper. Like all the answers are. If they can by heart everything, they can write all the answer. Right, sir?
Yeah, exactly, to avoid situations like those. Because in paper 3, the variation of the questions is not as large.
But if they learn that proper answer, they can write, because they no need to correlate the stimulus material. They can write directly in general way.
Yeah, that's why the stimulus material is there. And if you do not apply your arguments to the stimulus material, you are not getting the highest marks anyway.
But my thought was, we need to just correlate the material and the theory part.
What do you mean by correlate?
Correlate means, we need to, for example, it's a focused group. The stimulus material is given. If that study is based on, they conducted the interview based on they conducted focused group interview.
Okay.
They should explain what is focused group interview. It's a limitation, strength, limitation. Then you need and tell how they conducted that. How they use the focused group in that particular study. That also.
Yeah, it could be the case if you are given focus groups for interviews. So if you're given something like evaluate focus groups as a technique, then of course they can speak about focus group in general. They could speak about their main limitations.
Yeah.
But then they should illustrate those points. Like the main limitation, one of the main limitations of a focus group would be the fact that a small number of participants are getting together and they're discussing sensitive issues, which breaches the ethical standard of confidentiality. As was seen in this particular example, so we can see that by looking at these specific parts of the stimulus material. So they still need to refer to the stimulus material in the specific places in their answer, not just randomly. See what I mean? Like the stimulus material should be there to support every point they make about focus groups in general. They cannot just provide a discussion whatsoever of focus groups first, and then discuss this concrete study like in a sequential manner. They need to intermingle the two things. So, does that make sense?
Yes.
Do you do it? So let's let him go and